Welcome back to LaunchPad EIC, where ambition meets direction. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Michael Johnson, President of NJII, New Jersey Innovation Institute. I always mix that up with New Jersey Institute of Technology as I graduated from there. I'm your host, Marina. And today's topic will be about how to balance your work-life balance, essentially. And sometimes it may not be an exact balance, and that's what Dr. Michael's here to talk about. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and look forward to connecting.
Can you share a little bit about your background and who you are for our audience?
Absolutely. By background, I'm a scientist, so I've always loved science since I was a little kid. Always blowing things up, building rockets, taking things apart. Always have really loved STEM since I was 4 or 5 years old. I mean, looking at encyclopedias and copying out diagrams and things like that. It's always been a big nerd. And I did a PhD at Rutgers University. While I was there doing my PhD, trying to become a real scientist, I and another graduate student, Tom Villani, we started a startup company during our PhD work that was focused on imaging tissues. So if you imagine mouse brains or biopsies, the way we image tissues, we put them on glass microscope slides by slicing them into thin sections and looking at them. And Tom, my colleague, had developed a way to actually image tissues in 3D. So make tissues transparent, image them in 3D. And it was a really cool technology and a whole field of 3D microscopy that he invented back in about 2012. And from that technology, we built a company that was focused on helping pharma companies and researchers image tissues, generate huge amounts of data, and answer questions they couldn't otherwise answer. How do drugs penetrate into tissues? Where does a vaccine go, for example? Is a drug safe? Is it efficacious? What does it do? So we helped researchers answer all those questions by operating as a company that sold products, so reagents and kits, and then also doing service projects for all 20 of the top 20 pharma companies. Back in 2021, we sold the company to a Swedish-based publicly traded company called BICO. And at the time, we had 40 plus employees. We were profitable. We did work for all big pharma companies, about 200 different drug discovery projects with companies from around the world. I stayed on with our parent company that acquired us for about 2.5 years. And then about 2.5 years ago, I joined NJII, which is a mouthful. It's tough to say out loud. I joined as the president, and at NJII, we are focused on solving this problem that we have in the US, which is how do you work with academia? Academia is where all the cool ideas come from. It's where all of our researchers are working from like a decade in a lab trying to come up with something cool and new. But it's really tough for the outside world and really tough for companies to leverage all of those resources. And we bridge that gap. We're a team of roughly 90 people at NJII, and our mission is to be a conduit between NJIT, the state's polytechnic university, and the outside world. We operate in AI and defense and healthcare, and we do a lot of work in entrepreneurship with startup companies. And so really enjoy that. I'm very passionate about innovation and entrepreneurship, and every day we're living it.
I'd like to hear a little more about your decision to switch over into NJII and become president there instead of staying back at the other company.
It's tough to do a startup, really, really tough. And for me, where my focus and my skill set was in life sciences. And life sciences, after we sold our company, was in a really bad spot. So right now you see with the AI thing that we're in a giant bubble. And lots of people make huge amounts of money in bubbles, and other people lose lots of money in bubbles. Depends what side of the fence you're on. But in life sciences, the bubble popped in 21, 22 after all the COVID enthusiasm went away. And valuations for life science companies are down like 90% or so. So over the last 3 or 4 years, a terrible time to start a life science business. Valuations are crazy. You couldn't even buy one if you wanted to. The field is starting to like normalize now, but for me, I just wasn't in a place in my career or especially in my family life to do a startup. It requires a huge amount of effort and time. And it's just not something you otherwise do. Not saying my current job doesn't require a lot of time, but a startup is it's just very meaningfully different from any job you could possibly have. It requires everything of you.
Absolutely. And so I think that's a great foundation to have this conversation with, essentially, as a lens, because you've had experience within a startup and now you're experiencing a little less of a startup, but still something a little smaller scale. So it's a great place to help early in career professionals learn how to make those hard decisions and start to balance it. So many people believe they have to sacrifice family, health, or personal fulfillment to build such a successful career. Was there a moment in your own journey that challenged that belief, and what did that teach you?
I would say that early in your career, coming out of college in your 20s, even your early 30s, you do have to sacrifice those things because in life, if you do average, you're going to get an average outcome. And back in the 90s, like Homer Simpson was the average dad. And I always use this example, but worked a blue collar job, had a 4 or 5 bedroom house, had 3 kids, his spouse didn't work, had 2 cars. That's not average anymore. Average now is much worse than that.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to be average. And if you want to set yourself apart from everybody else, you have to put more effort and time into that career dimension of your life. But if you put in the same effort as everybody else, you're going to get what everybody else has, which is probably not what you want. And I think that's difficult for people to say and to wrap their head around. They talk about work-life balance. They talk about enjoying themselves and finding themselves. And I would say, like to use the Gen Z term, like that's all cope. Like that's all just nonsense. Like during your 20s, you do have to work a huge amount of hours and time. There's no other way to get ahead. And it's doing all of the basics, showing up early, staying late, putting in more effort, working multiple jobs. I don't think there is a way around that. I really don't. There are some people that have set themselves up really well where they have wealthy parents, they went to an Ivy League school, and maybe they can do like average work per week and have a non-average outcome because of where they started. But for most people, I don't think that's possible. And it depends on what you want to get out of life. But your 20s and your early 30s are where you set yourself up for the next 30, 40, 50 years of your life.
I think that's really great advice. And that's kind of what I alluded to in the beginning here, where, it might not always be fully balanced. The scale might be skewed heavily towards putting a lot more effort into your work before your life when you are young in 20s and 30s. But how do you know when is okay to say no then versus saying yes to every opportunity and stretching yourself so thin to the point where you end up burning out and it ends up not helping you become successful?
It's a great question. One of the things I see people do really poorly with this is they look at the wrong person. So look at some influencer who's like 35 or 40 or 50, and they're telling you about their day, their schedule, what they're doing, but they're showing you what they're doing today, not what they did in their 20s. So like Alex Hormozy is an influencer I follow a lot, and he talks about where he's at today. But when he was in his 20s, he was sleeping on the floor in a gym to try and make money to start a startup company. So it's looking at a person and saying, okay, where am I in my journey and where were they when they were at this part of their journey? They're two very different things. But if you do put a lot of effort in, you can far surpass them. It just takes a lot of time and upfront effort, and you have to have a significant degree of delayed gratification, which in this day and age is really tough. People don't want that.
Also, I think hard to trust yourself in the moment when you don't know where the future really lies. But I think that's great advice to say don't compare yourself to someone who's made it now. Look at what they've done when they were in their 20s to get them here. So,
Right.
do you have an example of something that, or of a moment where you told yourself in your 20s, like, actually, this is worth it. Let me stay up all night doing this because I see the vision, it's going to happen, that you can share with the audience?
I have always been a person, and especially when I was a kid, 5, 6 years old, I always just did the opposite of everybody else. I've always been very contrarian, where if everyone else is doing A, I'm doing C. If the teacher says to do this, I'm doing the opposite. It was just always the way I
Little
was. So for
troublemaker.
me, in my my 20s, when I'm seeing all of my friends make a lot more money than me, or they have good careers at good companies, I was just like, screw that. I know better than them. And there are those times in the middle of the night where you're like, am I the dumb one and they're right and I'm wrong? So you do question that. But
Hmm.
one of the things you really have to do is you have to find people like where you want to be. I set myself up well early on by finding a mentor who was about 15 years older than me, and he had built a lab service business like I was trying to do. He had sold it for 9 figures almost, and he had been really successful. And I could go to him and ask him all these super difficult questions. I could see exactly what he did, how he did it, when he did it. And that gave me perspective because growing up, I didn't know any entrepreneurs. I didn't know any business owners. I didn't know anyone who built and sold a company. And so if your friends are people who are just like in corporate jobs, they're going to give you terrible advice. You're not going to understand anything that you're talking about. And so it's finding someone who is where you want to be in life and trying to get them to give you as much guidance as possible. But then also considering like, well, what did they do? Like, are they terrible as a father or spouse? How did they exactly get there?
Right.
But having those mentors in your life, I would say that allows you to get rid of that noise and that self-doubt to a large degree because they're going to answer questions that you couldn't otherwise get answers to.
I agree. Mentorship is a great aspect of helping you figure out what the balance is for your own life, especially if it's someone who's been in kind of similar shoes as you. But then as you progress through your career, I think mentorship continues to change and grow, and like you can have the same exact mentor in every aspect of your career. So for
Right.
you, as you're progressing through your career, and your responsibilities grew. What kind of habits or boundaries did you end up setting? Maybe some decisions that really helped you stay present for the things that matter most to you, both at work and at home.
I've picked up a lot of weird habits, which I didn't realize were weird until I talked to more people. So as like an entrepreneur, you're very isolated. You hang out with a small group of people, but like I miss the whole cell phone thing and social media thing. Like I don't have any notifications. I don't really, I use social media for like LinkedIn, but like I've never looked at someone else's social media. I like generate content, but I've never looked at other people's stuff. So I have no notifications. I don't answer the phone. I don't answer texts. I don't answer calls. I check email like twice a day. So like I treat a cell phone and technology like you did in like the late 90s. I kind of never changed. So that's a big one.
I have no idea how you would function day to day without the tech we have.
Well,
Like
so I
I'm
mean, for example, the cell phone is one of the most inefficient things, not because of wasting time on social media, but because if I do anything on my phone, I'm about 2x slower if I just do it on a computer. So that's
okay.
one in particular. I would say technology has been a crutch for most people where it's slowed them down tremendously. Outside of that, like scheduling my time, I every one of my days is completely booked. Like if someone calls me, I won't answer because that day is already booked, so it's
Yeah.
next week. And really protecting my time really well and just planning out every single day like a week or 2 weeks in advance. So
Hmm.
there's a bunch of things like that that I can dig into, but all little things add up a lot.
Okay. I mean, I think the one habit that you really called out was setting up your days and prepping for them throughout the weeks. Like I started doing something like that back in college when I realized like there is a lot of responsibilities as a college student between working and being a student itself and then all the extracurriculars and all that. You really have to hone in what you're doing
Right.
every single day. So on Sundays, I would look at my entire week, make sure I'm ready for the entire week essentially. And I think that's a big habit that a lot of people learn to do early in their career because otherwise they will end up missing a call or missing something important. But I think my generation does a good job using our phones to do it. And I think I think it's helped me at least be a little more versatile. Like I can quickly do something on my phone when I'm out and about, which is definitely sacrificed my work-life balance because when I'm out and about, I am using my phone to do some sort of work or something, but quickly jot it down, put it on my calendar, or quickly send an email on my phone. But I do see what you're saying because I do prefer using my computer when I am home or when I am at the computer. It takes me much less time to do it than on my phone. For students and early career professionals who feel really pressure to grind at all costs, drop everything and just work all day, all night long. What's one piece of advice you'd give them about building an exceptional career without losing themselves, who they are, and the people who they would like to surround themselves with every day?
Well, going back to the thing before, you just have to put more effort in other people. I would say like there's no way around that. In early in your career, you should be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like to find yourself, I don't know what that means. I mean, it's just people talk about that all the time. I mean, find yourself more quickly. I don't know. Just don't spend so much time on it. But I think early in your career, your outcomes in life will be directly proportional to how many hours you put in. It's
Yeah.
also you want to be efficient with that time, which goes like the cell phone thing and how you're spending your time, and constantly asking yourself the question, is this a good use of my time? So you asked before about what do you say no to? I'm always asking myself the question of like, was that a good use of time? Did that have a return on investment? Should I have gone to that conference? Should I have had that phone call? Should I continue to have these types of meetings or should I get rid of them? So you want to be efficient with your time, but there's no way around just putting a huge amount of effort into
Effort. Yeah.
something. And then, yeah, in your 20s and 30s, that's when you're grinding. That's setting yourself up for balance later. Because the problem that I find most people have is they don't do that. Now they're in their 30s where life gets a lot more difficult. So, like, the level of difficulty goes up. And now, God willing, you have children and you're married and you have all these other responsibilities. Life is like 3 times harder than it was in your 20s. So you're
Hmm.
going to wish you had put that time in your 20s and didn't spend so much time finding yourself Where now when you're in 30s, you can work 30, 40 hours a week and do all the other responsibilities that you need to do. Otherwise, what you see a lot of my friends and folks doing is they're working, like two people are working 60, 70 hours a week in their 30s while they have kids. They can't really see their kids. The work-life balance is terrible. They're in daycare all day, and it's just awful. And I would say you want to avoid that. So like it's you or now or you later, but I'd say setting yourself up for later is much better and much less painful.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds like really great advice. I would not want to be working 60, 70 hours a week if I have a kid at home, which
Yeah.
I think kind of leads. I know we haven't really touched upon your book, 1% Dad, if you want to talk anything about that. I think that's like a good kind of correlation here.
Sure. The book, it's focused on this principal question of how do you excel in all these different dimensions of life? Because what you're getting at is balance. And that means different things to different people. If you're 20 and you have no, kids or spouse, it's very different than when you do and you have multiple kids and multiple things going on. But how do you balance all those different aspects of your life? And so I was terrible at this. When I was doing my startup, I was a pretty good husband and spouse. I didn't have kids yet. But then when I had a child, I realized there's this new giant dimension. Where do I like, pull time from to do that well? And I started thinking about how do I better hack with my time? How do I get more out of my day? How do I get rid of things that are time sucks or time wastes and just become as efficient as possible? And at the same time, manage your health and manage your mental health and well-being with your career and still kind of try to push trajectory. And what you find is like people waste a lot of time in just dumb areas of their life. And that's a lot of the focus of the book is like, what are those areas? What are those mistakes that people make? And going back to your question about young folks, in New Jersey, the playbook is typically you get like a Fortune 100 job at some company. You move to Hoboken or Jersey City in an apartment you can barely afford. You get like
Yeah.
an Audi A4 that you park on the street that people crash into that you can barely afford. And then what happens is you're like in your late 20s and there's some big opportunity that comes knocking at your door, but you can't take it because you're too indebted to your lifestyle. And then you need
Mhm.
that next job and that next job, that next job. And you find your ability to do cool new stuff and make new challenges in your life just impossible. And that is one of the things I think I see a lot of my friends and folks do is they make that set of decisions like in their very early 20s. It kind of screws up the whole rest of their life because they started that in their early 20s.
Yeah.
And that's like the trap most people get into.
I definitely agree with you. I think lifestyle creep at least is very um hard to recognize when it's happening to you. So I think it's a good advice to at least say while you're in your 20s to the decisions that you're making should align with who you want to be in your late 30s or when you become a parent or whatever you see yourself doing in your late 30s. So
The
thank you.
lifestyle creep, though, point you make is really good because where I've seen people be the most successful is somebody will call you out of the blue or you bump into them at a bar or something and they'll
Mhm.
say, I got this job. It pays like 30% less than your job, but the title's CEO or CCO or something big. It's in a weird place in Sweden. Do you want to take it? And if you're indebted to that lifestyle, you can't do it. But for the people who jump way ahead in their career, they say, sure, I got some savings. I'll quit my job tomorrow and do this. And they're able to do that. And because of that, their careers advance dramatically. The person who has to keep doing what they're doing, they get really stuck in their career on like incremental growth. But the person that can take that big bet on themselves, they really move ahead.
This was a very great conversation, Michael. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day and fatherhood alone
Of
to kind
course.
of share your experiences and perspectives with us today. And for all our listeners, if you found any value in today's episode, be sure to follow us on YouTube or Instagram or and listen to us on Spotify. We'll see you in the next episode.